So now that I've checked the back of my tractor, the front of my tractor, the side of my tractor, now I have to start checking the fifth wheel and the trailer. So for my fifth wheel, I have to ensure that the kingpin is safely attached and locked into the locking jaw. I have to make sure that the apron and skid plate are not cracked or damaged. I have to make sure that there's no space in between the apron, skid plate, fifth wheel, whatever you want to call it. It's really the skid plate and the fifth wheel that you're making sure that there's no gap in between. I don't know. Then I have to check the fifth wheel release arm, which is this really cool thing that you get to pull. And I have to make sure that it's not bent, damaged, and that it's in the locked position. It must be locked. I have to check the locking pins, make sure that they're in the locked position. I have to check the pins and quarter pins, make sure that they're in place. The base and the frame, make sure that it's not cracked or damaged. I have to check the mounting bolts, make sure that they're not cracked, damaged, or missing. And if the fifth wheel is air powered, I have to look for cracks, damages, or leaks in the actuator. That's what it's called, pivot safety pin. Okay. Then I go to the rear of the tractor. I have to check the mud flaps. I have to make sure that they're mounted securely, they cover both tires, that they're no more than 8 inches long, and that they're at least 3 inches off the ground. Then I have to check the kingpin. I have to make sure that it's not bent or damaged. I have to check the locking jaw. I have to make sure that it's completely around the kingpin. I have to check the lights and the reflectors. The reflectors are on the mud flaps, the lights are on the frame of the tractor. I have to make sure that the lights aren't cracked, damaged, or missing, and that they're the proper color. Then I have to check the reflectors, and I have to make sure that they're the proper color and that they're not worn away. Now I have to turn around and check under the trailer. So I'm looking at the trailer frame, the cross beams, and the landing gear. I have to make sure that they're mounted securely and that they're not damaged. I have to make sure that the fifth wheel is positioned properly so that the tractor frame clears the landing gear whenever it turns. So it has to be within the space of being able to turn without the fifth wheel catching onto the landing gear, because that can cause a massive problem. That's weird. Alright, so for the trailer frame, I'm going to make sure that it's not bent. I have to look all the way down at the whole frame of the trailer. I have to make sure that it's not bent anywhere. I have to make sure that the cross beams aren't bent, that they're not rusting away, and that there's not gigantic holes in it. I have to make sure that the landing gear isn't bent and that it's fully up, and that the landing arm is, that's so stupid that they don't have it. I have to make sure that the landing arm is in the locked position. It cannot be dangling down, otherwise you can get a hefty ticket. Then I'm going to check the side of the trailer. So now I'm coming out from underneath the trailer and I'm checking the side of the trailer. I'm checking the reflective tape. I'm making sure that it's the proper color, which is red and white. I'm making sure that it's no less than 90% there. Then I'm checking any lights that are on the side of the trailer, the clearance lights, the blinker lights, the ABS light, and the marker light. I'm making sure that they're the proper color. For the ABS, the clearance, and the blinker light, they have to be amber in color. For the marker light, it has to be red. Then I have to check the sliding tandems. I have to make sure that it's not damaged and that it's in the locked position. Then I have to check the tandem release arm, which is in front of the tandems. So I have to check the tandem release arm and make sure that it's in the locked position and that the arm is not damaged. Now I have to look under the truck. This is not on here, but for my own information, the airline hoses that are under the trailer, I have to make sure that they're at least 18 inches off the ground. Otherwise, they can get snagged on something, especially when you're going over railroad tracks, and then they can cut, and then you lose your brakes to your trailer, which, I mean, then you jackknife and you can't stop properly, and then that just causes a bunch of problems. So make sure that the airlines under the trailer are 18 inches off the ground. Then I have to check the tandem brakes. I have to check the hoses. I have to make sure that they're not crack damaged or leaking. Then I have to check the brake chamber. I have to make sure that it's securely mounted, not crack damaged or leaking. No loose or missing clamps. Then I have to check the slack adjuster. I have to make sure that it's securely mounted and that there's no more than 1 inch of play with the wheels chalked and the brakes released. Then I have to check the push rod. I have to make sure that the push rod is at a 90-degree angle, which indicates proper adjustment, and that there is no more, that it's not bent or damaged. Okay, then I have to check the brake drum inside the tires again. I have to make sure that there's no oil, debris, discoloration, which would indicate overheating, and that they're not cracked or damaged. Then I have to check the brake shoe. I have to make sure that the shoe isn't crack damaged or oil soaked, and that it has at least 1/4 inch of pad on the shoe. Okay, then I have to check the suspension. So I'm going to check the spring hangers, which again are these giant metal things that are attached to the springs. So I have to check the spring hangers. I have to make sure that they're mounted securely, not crack damaged. Then I have to check the springs. I have to make sure that they're not crack damaged or scissored. I have to check the U-bolts. I have to make sure that they're not crack damaged or missing. I have to check the control arm. Control arm. I don't think I know where the control arm is. Okay, well, I'll find that out tomorrow. The control arm, which should be right in between the two tandems. But I have to make sure that it's not damaged or broken. Okay, now I have to check the wheels and the tires. So I start by checking the sidewalls of the tires. I have to make sure that there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and that they're worn evenly. I have to make sure that there's no less than 2/30 seconds of depth on the tires. Check with the gauge. I have to make sure that the pressure is at least 100 psi or manufacturer's specifications. Check with the gauge. I have to check the wheels. I have to make sure that there's no spiderweb cracking between the vent holes and the lug nut holes. I have to make sure that there's no illegal welds on the wheels, no damage to the bead. Rims are bud wheels, so I have to make sure that there's that they're evenly spaced and that there's no debris in between the wheels. Now I have to check the lug nuts. I have to make sure that there's no rust trails, rust, shiny thread or oxidization / black soot on aluminum wheels, which would indicate looseness. I have to make sure that they're not missing or damaged. Then I have to check the hubcap. I have to make sure that it's not cracked, damaged, or leaking, and that it's mounted securely. I have to check the valve stem, make sure that it's not cracked or damaged, and that it has a metal cap. Then I have to check the mud flaps. I have to make sure that they cover both wheels, that they're no less than 8 inches off the ground, and that they're no longer than 8 inches, and that they're no more than 3 inches off the ground. Now I have to walk to the rear of the trailer, and I have to check the doors. I have to make sure that the locking thing for the door is on the side of the trailer, that it's not damaged or broken or missing, and that the chains can go in it and secure properly. Then I have to check the doors. I have to make sure that the chains on the doors aren't missing or damaged. I have to check the seal of the doors, make sure that it's not cracked, damaged, or missing. I have to check the doors, make sure that they're not cracked, damaged, or missing. I have to check the reflector tape. I have to make sure that it's there and that it's the proper color, which is red. Red and white. Then I have to check the lights. I have to make sure that the lights are the proper color, red, and that they're not cracked, damaged, or missing. I have to check the DOT bar. I have to make sure that it's white and that it has the proper reflective tape, which is red and white. Make sure that the reflective tape is there and visible and not damaged or missing. Then I go to the other side and I tell the inspector, I will inspect this side as I did the other side, with 3 exceptions. The 3 exceptions are the right blinker light. I have to inspect this to ensure that it's the proper color and that it's not cracked, damaged, or missing. And then I have to check the 5th wheel pivot safety pin to ensure that it's in the proper place and that it's not damaged or missing. Then I have to check the exhaust. I have to make sure that it's not cracked, damaged, or missing, and that there's no discoloration, which would indicate a leak in the exhaust system. Sir, that concludes my pre-trip inspection.